Welcome back. Part 2 of Neil Gaiman's Fortunately the Milk. When we last left the father, he was about to walk the plank when he heard, "Quickly, climb up the rope ladder." I needed no more encouragement than this, and I grabbed the rope ladder with both hands. Fortunately, the milk was pushed deep into the pocket of my coat. The pirates hurled insults at me, and even discharged pistols, but neither insults nor pistol shot found their targets, and I soon made it to the top of the rope ladder. I'd never been in the basket of a hot air balloon before. It was very peaceful up there. The person in the balloon basket said, "I hope you don't mind me helping, but it looked like you were having problems down there." I said, "You're a stegosaurus." "I am an inventor," he said. "I have invented the thing we are traveling in, which I call Professor Steg's floaty ball person carrier." "I call it a balloon," I said. "Professor Steg's floaty ball person carrier is the original name," he said. "And right now we are 150 million years in the future." "Actually," I said, "we are about 300 years in the past." "Do you like hard, hairy, wet white crunchers?" he asked. "Coconuts?" I guessed. "I named them first," said Professor Steg. He picked up a coconut from a basket and ate it, shell and all, just as you or I might crunch toast. He showed me his time machine. He was very proud of it. It was a large cardboard box with several pebbles on it, and stones stuck to the side. There was also a large red button. Red button. I looked at the stones. "Hang on," I said. "Those are diamonds and sapphires and rubies." "Actually," he said, "I call them special shiny clear stones, special shiny bluey stones, and special shiny red stones," I suggested. "Indeed," he said. "I called them that when I was inventing my really good moves around in time machine, 150 million years ago." "Well," I told him, "it was very lucky for me that you turned up when you did and rescued me. I am slightly lost in space and time right now, and I need to get home in order to make sure my children get milk for their breakfast." I showed it to him. "This is the milk." Although I expect that 150 million years ago you called it wet white drinky stuff. "Dinosaurs are reptiles, sir," said the Professor Stag. "We do not go in for the milk." "Do you go in for breakfast cereal?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "Dinosaurs love breakfast cereal, especially the kind with nuts in." "What do you have on your cereal?" I asked. "Orange juice, mostly, or we just eat it dry. But I shall put this in my book. In the distant future, small mammals put milk on their breakfast cereal. I shall write a wonderful book when I return to the present." "Actually," I said, "I think this is definitely the past. It has pirates in it." "It's the future," he said. "All the dinosaurs have gone off into the stars, leaving the world to mammals." "I wondered where you all went," I said. "The stars," he told me. "That is where we will have gone." "So," I said, "can you take me home?" "Well," he said, "yes and no." "What do you mean?" "Yes, I would love to take you home. Nothing would make me happier. No, I cannot take you home. In all honesty, I do not believe that I can take me home. My time machine is being temperamental. I need a special shiny greeny stone. I have pressed that button many times, but nothing happens." "Button? Don't you mean big, red, flat, pressy thing?" I asked. "I most certainly do not. It is a button. I named it after my Aunt Button." "Can I press it?" "If you wish." I pressed the button. The sun shot around the sky, and the sky started to flicker in nights and in days, and the balloon began to rock and lurch and zoom around like an angry fly. I held on to the ropes as hard as I could. Fortunately, I was still keeping tight hold of the milk in my right hand. When we stopped being blown all across the sky, it was night, and, according to Professor Steg, we'd only gone back about 1,000 years. The moon was nearly full. "I'm even further from my children and our breakfast," I said. "You have your milk," he said. "Where there is milk, there is hope." "Ah, over there. That looks like a perfect landing platform for time-traveling scientists in floaty ball person carriers. We landed on the platform and got out. The platform stuck up out of the jungle and had flaming torches on each side. There were people standing on it with very black hair and sharp stone knives. "Is this a balloon landing platform?" I asked the people. "It is not," said a fat man. "It is our temple. We had a very bad harvest last year, and we had just asked the gods to send us a sacrifice to make sure that this year's harvest is better, when you floated down in that thing with your monster." "Thank you, by the way," said a thin little man. "I was going to be the sacrifice if no one else turned up. Much obliged." "So now we will sacrifice you and your monster." "But my children are waiting for their breakfast," I said. "Look." I held up the milk. "Why did they all just fall to their knees?" asked Professor Stegg. "Is this usual hairless mammal behavior?" "Perhaps I should hold up some hard, hairy, wet white crunchers and see what happens." "Coconuts," I told him. "They are called coconuts." "What is that you are holding?" the fat man asked. "Milk," I said. "Milk!" they exclaimed, and they prostrated themselves on the ground. "We have a prophecy," said the fat man, "that when a man and a spiny-backed monster descend from the skies on a round floaty thing—" "Floaty ball person carrier," said the little thin man. "Yes, one of those. We were told that when that happened, if the man held up milk, then we were not to sacrifice them, but we were meant to take them to the volcano and give them, as a present, the green jewel that is the eye of Splod." "Splod?" "He is the god of the people with short funny names." "It is," I said, "a remarkably specific sort of prophecy. When did you receive it?" "Last Wednesday," said the fat man, proudly. "The priest of Splod was woken in the night by a voice whispering from the heavens. And when he went to look and see who it was, there was nobody there. Also, he was sleeping on the top of the temple, and nobody else could have been up there with him. So it must have either been Splod himself talking, or one of his angelic messengers." He walked together down a jungle path. Professor Stegg carried the rope in his mouth that led up to the balloon, and he dragged the balloon along. After half an hour, you reached the volcano. It was not a very big volcano. There were wisps of smoke coming from the top of it. On the side of the volcano, there was a carving of a big scary face with one eye in the middle of its forehead. The eye was the biggest emerald I had ever seen. "A special shiny greeny stone," said Professor Stegg, with his mouth full of rope. The fat man clambered up the side of the volcano. "It is a good thing that Splod himself told us to give you the Eye of Splod," said the thin little man, who had narrowly avoided being sacrificed. "Because there is another prophecy that if the Eye of Splod is ever removed, great Splod will awaken and spread burning destruction across the land." "Here you go," said the fat man. He handed us the emerald. Professor Stegg nipped up the rope ladder to the balloon's gondola and began to install the emerald in the time machine. "Hang on. He was a stegosaurus?" "Yes." "Then how could he just nip up a rope ladder?" "He was," said my father, "a large stegosaurus, but very light on his feet. There are fat people who are extremely excellent dancers." "Are there any ponies in this?" asked my sister. "I thought there would be ponies by now." I was standing on the ground, holding on to the rope ladder, and the ground shook, and the very small volcano began to belch smoke and lava. "Splod is angry!" shouted the thin little man. "He wants his eye back!" There was a rushing wind, and the balloon jerked me up into the air, high above the splurting lava. Unfortunately, I dropped the milk. I wasn't holding onto it tight enough. It landed on the top of Splod's head. Professor Stegg hauled the rope ladder up with his tail. "I've lost the milk," I told him. "That's not good," he admitted. "But I know where it is. It's on top of Splod's head, on the right side of the volcano." Professor Stegg said, "Good Splod, what on earth is that?" Before our eyes, another balloon, just like ours, appeared over by the volcano. A man hurried down the rope ladder. He placed a large emerald in Splod's eye, picked up the milk from Splod's head, ran up the ladder, and the balloon vanished. The very small volcano stopped erupting as suddenly as if it had been turned off. "That was a bit peculiar, wasn't it?" said the professor. "It was," I agreed, gloom and despair and despondency overcoming me. "That man and that balloon stole my milk. We are lost in the past, with jungles and pirates and volcanoes. Now I will never get home. My children will never have breakfast. We are doomed to float over through the dusty air of the past in a hot air balloon." "It is not a balloon," said Professor Stegg. "It is a floaty ball person carrier. What nonsense you do talk. Now I think that should do the trick." He finished attaching the emerald to the box, using string, mostly, and also sticky tape, and he pushed the red button. "Where are we going?" I asked. It seemed like the sun was zooming across the sky, as if nights were following days in a flickering strobe. "The far, far future," said Professor Stegg. The machine stopped. We were hanging in the air above a grassy plain, with a very small gray mountain beneath us. "There," said Professor Stegg. "It is now an extinct volcano. But look!" On the side of the extinct volcano was carved the face of Splod, still recognizable, even though it was much eroded by time and the weather, and in the single eye was a huge green emerald, a perfect twin to the one we had attached to the time machine. "Right," said Professor Stegg. "Grab me that special shiny greeny stone." I went over the side of the gondola and down the rope ladder. I pulled the emerald out of the eye socket. Below me on the plain a number of brightly colored ponies were gathered, and when I picked up the emerald, one of them shouted up to me, "You must be the man without the milk. We have heard about you in our tales." "Why are you a pink pony with a pale blue star on its side?" I asked. "I know," said the pony with a sigh. "It's what everybody's wearing these days. Pale blue stars are so last year." Professor Stegg leaned over the side of the balloon basket. "Hurry up," he called. "If the volcano is going to go off, it will do it any moment." The volcano made a noise like a huge burp, and the middle of it collapsed into itself. "We thought it would do that," said a green pony with the sparkly mane. "There was a prophecy, I suppose," I said. "No, we're just very clever," all the ponies nodded. They were very clever ponies. "I'm so glad there are ponies," said my sister. I got back into the balloon basket. Professor Stegg unhooked the first emerald from his time machine and replaced it with the one that I had just taken from the weathered surface of Splod in the future. "Do not, whatever else you might do," said the professor, "touch those two stones together." "Why not?" "Because according to my calculations, if the same object from two different times touches itself, one of two things will happen. Either the universe will cease to exist, or three remarkable dwarves will dance through the streets with flower pots on their heads." "That sounds astonishingly specific," I said. "I know, but it is science, and it is much more probable that the universe will end." "I thought it would be," I said. "You look so sad," Professor Stegg told me. "I am. It's the milk. My children are breakfastless." "The milk," said Professor Stegg. "Of course." And with that, Professor Stegg pressed the red button with his heavily armored tail. There was a zoom and a twarp and a thang, and we were hurled through the cosmic void. And then it was very dark. Very dark. "Oops," said Professor Stegg. "Overshot a little. Only by a week, though. Hold on." Professor Stegg leaned over the side of the basket. "Excuse me," he said. "Is there anyone around?" "Only me," said a very surprised-sounding voice from below us. "The priest of Splod. Who is that up in the sky? Is it a bird? You do not sound like a bird." "I am not a bird," said Professor Stegg. "I am a marvelous yet mysterious and prophetic voice telling you a mighty prophecy. So mighty that, very mighty indeed. Listen. When a huge and good-looking spiny-backed individual, Monster, I told him. The prophecy said monster. Accompanied by a scrawny human being of revolting appearance, said Professor Steg. That was not necessary. Lands in a floaty ball person carrier. You must not sacrifice them. You must instead take them to the volcano and give them the Eye of Splod. And this shall be the way that you shall know them. The human being will hold up some milk. Is that the prophecy? Said the voice. Yes. Is there anything about crops in it? I'm afraid not. Oh, well, thank you anyway, prophetic and mysterious voices from the air. I pressed the red button. Daylight. We were in the middle of a very familiar volcanic eruption. Quickly, I said, give me the emerald. A little way away, I could see a balloon being blown through the sky, while fire and ash were swept around it by the wind. I could see me in the balloon standing next to Professor Steg, with my mouth open. I looked miserable. Professor Steg, my Professor Steg, gave me the emerald. I raced down the rope ladder and placed the emerald back into the face's eye. Then, as the volcano stopped erupting, I looked around for the milk. I knew it had landed on Splod's head when it fell. Fortunately, the milk had fallen into a small drift of volcanic ash and was unharmed. I picked it up, brushed it off, started back up the rope ladder. Professor Steg pressed the button. The sky went dark. That is the end of part 2 of Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman. Join us next time for part 3.